How's it going today? Today we're going to pick some stocks for July. It's been a while since I've been a little late in this month, but it's okay. It's been a hot one, but anyway, we're going to get right into it. I got 3 of them for this month. But be warned, I think the market is ran up a little too much. I was going to make a video of earnings season. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I think, just warn, I think a lot of these tech stocks that I recommend have ran up a lot. I believe they might take a hit. And that's how I kind of view it. Maybe I could get in details a little bit more of it. But as we kick off, but we're going to just get right into it. Make sure you like and subscribe this video for more updates on these stocks. I always do updates, review them, check in on them. You know what I mean? I believe that a lot of people recommend stocks, but they don't really talk about it. If they recommend it, they're like, oh, well, unless they're right, then they could go on about it. But if they're wrong, well, then they act like they didn't do it or they were misunderstood. But anyway, we're going to get right into it. The first one is Splunk. Splunk, I haven't really recommended this one, but I think it's a very good cloud stock to own. I mean, this thing's growing, but it really hasn't, for this stock, it really hasn't ran up a whole lot. You know, it has where it was, but it hasn't really exploded higher. It's still been sitting around the 31 billion, and it's been growing. Top line at over 30%, so I still believe this thing can go a lot higher. And that's what I really like about the company and everything like that. Just think of it's like a dating. It has all this data that it kind of all makes it all simple. I mean, for people to use, and it's kind of complex. And I can leave a link down with clouds and stuff because I believe that is the technology of the future. Everything's going to the cloud, and this thing makes it kind of easier, an infrastructure type thing where I mean, it kind of. You know, it's kind of hard to explain, but there's different layers to the cloud, and you can build applications on it, and it uses data. So basically, as more data goes on to the platform, think of, like Netflix, all that data is stored, like your favorite videos, your favorite movies, all that. It's not saved on your phone, it's saved on the cloud. So essentially, that's all that information, and think about all that technology, and think about the world we're in now. All this technology in Splunk kind of organizes all that data, makes it easier to process for people. So, I mean, it's very powerful, and it's only 31 billion. So this company's not really that big. Really, it's big. I mean, it's definitely a large company, but it's not big compared to a lot of these other companies that's went up, like Salesforce and stuff like that. And it has the revenue growth of 30%. It's been doing that for the last almost 10 years at least. And, so yeah, I mean, it keeps growing at that rate. I think the revenue is around 3 billion or so. Essentially, it's not profitable, and it doesn't really have any free cash flow. So there is some risk there, but I believe over the long term, I think these companies will eventually keep going and be very big. Now the next one is Slack, which I like this company also. It's another cloud computing play also. It's sitting around 18 billion. I was going to go with this one or Pinterest, but I went with Slack instead. Maybe I could make another video on Pinterest, and I think I already made a video of it, why it was one of my stocks of 2019. But I went with Work just because it's a new IPO. It hasn't really done anything, and the company's been growing pretty good. But I believe over the future of it, I mean, it kind of organizes everybody so they can kind of work together and make it easier. But there's a lot of platforms in the space. Think of Zoom. I think Microsoft offers a solution like that. So it's kind of a crowded space, sort of. But I mean, a lot of people like Slack because it kind of keeps everything organized and everything. And it has a lot of things, and they specialize in it. And they're probably the leader in that industry. So that's why I went with Slack. I normally pick the leaders of the companies, of the leader of the industry. I just sit back and think, what industries are changing the world. Think of Match Group, NVIDIA. I just picked the leaders, there's a lot of winners. There will probably be a lot of winners that just like streaming videos. Netflix is honestly the clear winner there. So you just kind of pick, and I think in Slack, and I think with that, I could see a world where that gets more implemented. And, so that's why I went with Slack. I think it's pretty small, and it can pretty much grow into that. It's not very massive, and I don't like to make, companies of $100, $200 billion market caps because they're just hard to grow. Slack can easily double, and it'd still be a pretty somewhat small company, and if it gets hit, you can add more to it. or a lot of these smaller companies also get bought out too. So, I mean, that's the other thing too, so you can get a big jump on there, but that's not what I really look for. I kind of look long-term growing, and you kind of want them small. You kind of want them small to grow into something big. But anyway, the next one is kind of like this, it's July, and I was thinking about the sun and everything like that, hot and summer and heat, so I went with Solar Edge technology. It's basically a solar panel type technology, but it operates a little different. And I'm not going to get into the full details. You can kind of look it up. There's some videos on YouTube that explains it in depth, but you have to think of the solar industry. It operates in that, because you have the generators, you have the solar panels, but you can't just have the solar panels. It has to have batteries and stuff, and it makes parts for that. So, and that's what I like about this company. The company's growing like a weed. I mean, and it's only an $8 billion company. So essentially, I mean, think about this company getting as big in solar energy, and I think solar energy probably will be the next. I think it will be, it's the biggest, probably, what am I trying to say, renewable energy that I think we'll have in the future. I think it's probably the biggest, it's probably growing the fastest, and I think it could probably be the winner there. I mean, there's a lot of new renewable energy, think of wind and geothermal, but, I mean, them places, only certain places can do it. Solar, you can kind of do it really anywhere, especially if you get solar panels good enough. I mean, any place can have and I kind of envision like every single house maybe having one if they get so much technology where it can harness all the sun. But anyway, we're not there yet, but that's kind of how I envision it. Think of, and even Tesla and Elon Musk says that, that's why he made investments in that, but he does a little different. They kind of make solar panels, and they have to make the batteries and stuff like that to store the energy too, because you have to collect the energy, then store the energy, and that's what a lot of these technologies do. So essentially, that's why I like Solar Edge technology. I think it's small enough that it can grow, but I believe that there's a lot of risk with the company also, with solar panels. I mean, if it's a political risk, it's always kind of this political thing, go green. I mean, so essentially, that's why I really don't like a whole lot of things that are political. Such, where the government can step in and go, well, we're not doing solar energy. You know what I mean? So we're not investing in energies, these companies, and you have the big oil companies that don't want any of these solar energy because it just takes away their profits. And it is what it is. And they go stick up with their arguments. And it's other thing where it's kind of how the company works. And another thing is a lot of these companies that have lower kind of margins are not like Apple, where they can raise the prices because they're selling to consumers, you know what I mean? Where consumers probably could pay more to get something better, you know what I mean? Where a company, they just want the cheapest and most efficient way to do it. And that's really what a company do. They won't buy it just because the brand, you know what I mean? They might, I guess they have some kind of, but majority of times businesses, so that's kind of how I view it. I mean, a person might want solar panels, but it's too expensive. Or a company be like, well, I can just do it cheaper with oil. So, I mean, especially with oil prices coming down, will this bring into a new age of oil? I mean, maybe if oil was skyrocketing and they had to do innovation, I mean, a lot of these companies, they have to have there's a lot of capital expenditures with them, you know what I mean? Because you have to build out the big solar fields and this and that, and a lot of that has to get funded with the government if they shut it down. So essentially, the whole industry has some risk, but I believe it has some potential. That's why I haven't went crazy with it. But I believe this company is small enough, and I always do risk assessment where I believe the company could go to zero, but the company could also go up 10 times. It could easily maybe be a $100 billion company if it's the full vision of it, and that's over 12 times. So you put 1,000 in it, it has the possibility of going to zero, or maybe get cut in half and get bought out, or it has the potential of going up to maybe 12 times, which is $12,000. So you put the risk of 1,000 going to zero or 12,000. So I think that's pretty risk reward. That's what I like, and I always think about that when I buy a stock or anything. What is the risk? Well, the risk is when a stock is going to zero. What is the likeliness of that? Well, maybe with this, maybe there's a lot of competition, but what is the reward? So if you get them small, it's easier for them to grow up, especially if they have big upsides, what this one does. But anyway, that's the review is Splunk. It's kind of a cloud computing type thing, data analytic type company. And then Slack, obviously, I think a lot of people are familiar with Slack and what it does. It's pretty simple. I mean, it's just like a software as a service. and they deliver out basically so works can kind of communicate with each other for a software. And solar energy, they kind of make these solar panels type things. They break parts for a solar panel, and you can look that up, and it gets kind of complicated, but there's a lot better videos, and I would not want to get into that, you know, for that, but you can just type them in and they can come up right up. They're a pretty big company, and solar energy is kind of one of these same complex situations too. So anyway, and that's all I gotta say with this, and thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, see if what you like about it, and everything like that, and thank you for watching. Thank you.